Yo, what's good everyone? This is Ayo Boxing with Madiba, and we're here to talk about Canelo Alvarez potentially vacating his IBF title. So news broke yesterday that the IBF ordered a purse bid for Canelo Alvarez to fight his IBF mandatory, William Scull. Canelo was ordered on May 13th to begin negotiations with Scull. However, they were unable to reach an agreement. I'm assuming Canelo wanted to pay step-aside money, but Scull refused the money. So then the IBF stepped in and ordered a purse bid to be held on June 6. But news broke today that Canelo intends to vacate the IBF title rather than participate in the purse bid to fight Scull. If Canelo vacates, then Scull will most likely fight the number 2 contender, Vladimir Shishkin, for the vacant IBF belt. And this news has caused a stir among some boxing fans. Some say Canelo is ducking, while others think it was a smart move by Canelo. Some say the IBF is unfair for basically stripping Canelo of his undisputed status, while others are already calling Scull an email champion. In my opinion, I think Canelo and the IBF are both justified in their actions. The reason why the IBF ordered this purse bid is because they were next in line among the 4 sanctioning bodies for Canelo's next mandatory defense. John Ryder was Canelo's WBO mandatory, while Jaime Munguia acted as the WBC mandatory by the way of a silver title, despite David Benavidez being a real WBC mandatory and interim champion. The WBA then argued that Edgar Berlanga was next in line to face Canelo, but based on the provided information, the IBF forced themselves to be next. And I don't think anyone should be mad at the IBF for this. At the end of the day, these sanctioning bodies are businesses and will put their interests first. Scull has been snubbed of the chance to fight for a title for at least 2 years. Scull has had 8 consecutive fights in Germany before getting a fight on the pre-pay-per-view portion of the Canelo Munguia undercard. And you have to remember that Scull is Cuban and he was fighting in Germany 8 fights in a row. And all those fights have been against no-name competition. Meanwhile, Canelo fought Caleb Plant for undisputed and racked up several paydays in big fights since becoming undisputed. It's only fair for Scull to get his title shot. Furthermore, the IBF forcing Canelo to fight his mandatory has been consistent with their actions over the past few months. The IBF stripped Crawford a few weeks after he became undisputed because he failed to negotiate a mandatory title defense with Jaron Ennis. Jai Opetaia was stripped when he opted to take the Saudi payday on the Day of Reckoning card rather than satisfying his IBF mandatory. Maurice Bredis and Alexander Usyk will most likely get stripped for his IBF title soon because he did not satisfy his overdue title defense against Filip Hrgovic. Canelo is just the latest of these IBF mandatory enforcements. And I understand why Canelo would rather vacate than defend because nobody knows who William Scull is. I pride myself on watching a lot of boxing and being familiar with a lot of boxers, but I've never seen a William Scull fight in my life. And just looking at BoxRec, I don't know who he's fought. Canelo's already heavily criticized on who he fights in his resume, so fighting Scull would make that worse. Furthermore, it would get in the way of bigger fights. A lot of news has been circulating around a potential Crawford-Canelo fight sponsored by Turki Al-Sheikh. Canelo only fights 2 times a year, once in May, once in September, so it makes perfect sense why he wouldn't want to fight Scull next. And if he were to defend against a mandatory, then WBA Edgar Berlanga would be a better choice for Canelo because Berlanga is the bigger name since he's Puerto Rican and has that fan base, and he has name recognition to a lot of boxing fans and casuals. And this is why I think Canelo vacating the IBF is a good thing overall. Having another belt to fight for at 168 will create more opportunities for contenders to fight each other. At the current moment, most of the contenders at 168 are taking soft touch-ups and less risky fights to not mess up their chance for a Canelo payday. Therefore, the top contenders are not fighting each other like they should. But a vacant IBF belt will change this. Contenders will fight to be champion and in the process will bring themselves more attention and more interest from the fans. And the 168th division desperately needs attention and interest because outside of Canelo, nobody really talks about that division. This is the perfect opportunity for Scull to make himself a name, but also gain some leverage to negotiate a Canelo fight in the future if he's a champion. And with Canelo free from a mandatory responsibility His next fight should be against a top name. The only bad thing about this is, if Crawford or Benavidez fights Canelo next, then it wouldn't be for undisputed. But who knows, this is boxing, anything can happen. But thank you for tuning in with AEO Boxing with Madiba. Like, subscribe, and more content coming your way.